They said she's sick. She came over for a minute and shared it with everybody.
After this one left.
I didn't see her. Any commissioners first.
You've been.
Yeah, John is confirmed vice council. And Gary is confirmed. No, that's how hi, John. We were wondering if you were gonna make it or not. I'm Sarah. Who's Jason?
Jason's good to meet you. Where's the signature?
I'm not sure. Does
Balance
John?
out the table.
Yeah.
Balance out the table.
Oh, yeah.
Does John have a nameplate, Nicole? Does John have a nameplate?
Oh, you Shelby.
I'm Nicole, I'm her
Oh, Nicole.
assistant.
Shelby's barely called me, so I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Yeah, I was just letting her know you just got here, so.
Great, I just had another meeting and I.
Oh, well, thank you for coming. For wondering, you know, but have a Carmeyer alternate isn't going to make it today.
Good for you.
So you have to get your meeting short.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're good.
Your Wi-Fi.
Uh,
There is.
I never use it, so.
Speaking of City Hall gas fire.
It's-
No, they can say, you would say yes to that, but you know. Right there at the bottom of this, it'll say, do you pass? Nope. That goes through it, it'll say you're.
Do you mind if I have one with you? Or should I just try?
Thank you.
Geez, you're techie too?
I can control your.
Yeah, sometimes, not as techy as my teenager, but
Just do that.
that's good.
And then as this restarts.
Yeah, it's like,
I'm gonna have the first.
great.
Hey, that's- Yeah, exactly.
Do you, do they have you set up as an email yet, or you can access the Google Drive, or do you want me to send you this?
Nope, I
You
downloaded
got-
it.
Oh, okay.
Look through it,
Awesome.
pretty good. So you see, use these slides.
Yeah. They're really sensitive. I've been. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Do we? I don't know if we were still recording or not.
All right.
Right.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Grantsville City Planning Commission meeting being held at 7 PM on Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. Location is 429 East Main Street, Grantsville, Utah 84029. We have Commissioner Jason Hill and myself, Sarah Moore, and our newest member, Planning and Zoning Commissioner John Montgomery present. We have a quorum, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a couple items on the agenda today that we will hold public hearings for. So we'll open the first item, the public hearing for the consideration of a proposed new use allowing micro entrepreneurship within the RM-7 zoning designation. Anybody here that would like to talk to that?
Yeah, I'm Gary Pinkham. About 3 weeks ago, I sent some comments in on this when it first showed up. I don't know if they got over to you folks or not. It appears that nothing has been done with them. But if we look at the second page on that thing, on the staff report under proposed use, the first item there limits the number of employees to 2. If you go down a short way on that same page under operation limits, it sets a limit of 1. So the code right now is contradictory. You guys will need to straighten that out and make it something that our legal department could enforce. The other item on that same page is with regards to permitted activities. It lists them as permitted activities. And going back 6 or 7 years when I was a member on the commission, I started pushing for our code to be rewritten to take all permitted uses in our code, whether it be chapter 14, 15, 16, or whatever, and convert them to conditional uses. My point on that is once you and the city designate it permitted, I can do that use without anybody telling me anything about it. You can't set lighting, you can't set hours of operation, you can't set fencing regulations because you are not permitted to put conditions on me. You've already permitted that use. Now, we saw that kind of a mess with Arby's down here. We need to take our code and convert everything to conditional use so the city retains the ability and the right to protect the citizens and the city on those uses and impose those conditions that are reasonable and appropriate. I would change the wording on that then to say conditional uses or conditional activities rather than permitted. The next page on page 3, under site standards, it states that it shall have a minimum, that the property for this permitted use would have a minimum of 200 feet of frontage. The RM7 allows a minimum of 70 foot of frontage. I don't think we have an RM7 zone in town with lots that come anywhere near this size. By putting a 200-foot minimum on your requirement here, you're basically making every RM7 lot in town illegal for this procedure. So if it is your intention to have this in RM7, you need to fix the code to fit the code designation. The those are the three things that I pointed out, like I say, 3 weeks ago. I don't know if staff ever read my comments or not, or anything. They definitely weren't addressed here. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Does anybody else like to comment on item A? Do we have anybody online? If you're online and would like to comment on the entrepreneurship, new type of zoning within the RM zoning designation, please raise your hand. Okay, we'll close that item and we will move on to public hearing for the second item on the agenda, the consideration of a proposed general plan amendment for parcels 01-131-0-0002 and parcel 01-130-0-009 and parcel 01-130-0-0008 and parcel 01-130-0-00016 and parcel 01-130-0-0014 to change the land use designation from rural residential 2 to mixed use density for the crossing at Willow Creek subdivision, approximately 154 acres. So this one is to change the land use designation. Would anybody like to speak to that subject?
Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here. We're excited about this this
So
area.
This is public comment.
This is
So
public
you guys are
comment.
making.
Oh,
public
yes, I
comment on this, or you-
apologize.
No,
Are you
You guys
the
won't.
We
involved with the
actually-
development?
this is actually our
This is
development.
public. comment.
Okay, super.
So if anyone has anything.
Oh, we
they
can
wanna talk
we can
about.
sit down.
Oh, yeah.
You jumped the gun. If Shelby was here, she'd have stopped it. So I guess.
I wish I would spend more time with the people who are bringing these items to the agenda, but I
just-
can't, so
He just-
I'm sorry, I don't recognize you, but I'll recognize you
They don't look
next
like your
time.
grandson, so.
Is there public comment on this item? Is there anybody online? If you're online, would like to address this item, would you raise your hand? Oh, I'm sorry. Please come up, state your name.
Hi, my name is Richard Groth. Good evening to the council, or good evening to the Planning and Zoning Commission. My question is this: as I was reviewing the plans, there appears to be one entrance for retail and a separate entrance for the homeowners. Is that correct?
So public comment, we can't really give you any feedback or answer any questions. What's on the plans in our public packet is what's there. So you could state questions and maybe the developers can address them when they're talking about it.
Another question I have, and I know you can't answer this, is there any plans to put traffic lights on 112? Another question is, how do you plan to mitigate the truck traffic for the mixed-use warehouses in the back? That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Good questions.
Thank you, Richard. Is there anybody else that would like to address this item? Is there anybody online? If you could raise your hand. Okay, we'll close that item. If there's no other public comment, and we'll move on to item C on the agenda for the public hearing, the consideration for a proposed rezone for the parcels in the same area ending in 0008, ending in 0016, and ending in 0014 from zoning destination A-10 agricultural to the general manufacturing district, MG, resulting in approximately 51.6 acres being zoned to MG. Is there anybody that would like to speak to that item? Okay. Do we have anybody online? If you'd raise your hand, if you'd like to speak to the general manufacturing district being implemented in this area? Okay, we'll close that item then, and we'll move on to the last item on the public hearing list. This would have been a good one where we would have brought the public hearing and then talked about the item and then brought the next one, the next public hearing and the item. So anybody would like to speak on item D, consideration of a proposed rezone for parcels 01-131-0-0002 and parcel 01-130-0-00009 and parcel 01-130-0-0008 and parcel 01-130-0-0016 and parcel 01-130-0-0014 from A10 agricultural designation to the mixed use district M-U for the crossing at Willow Creek subdivision, resulting in approximately 102.4 acres being zoned for mixed use. Is there anybody that would like to speak to that item during your public comment? Okay, is there anybody online? If you're online, would like to speak to the designation going from agricultural to a mixed use district, would you raise your hand? Okay, well, fantastic. We will close that item and we will open up the items for discussion of the Planning and Zoning Commission on the agenda. Item number 1, consideration of a proposed new use allowing micro entrepreneurship within the RM7 zoning designations. Hi,
How's it going?
good. How are you?
Glad to see everyone survived the holiday and hope that got to spend it with those that you love in a place of warmth and light. Groundhog Day, it's a favorite. This is something that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. It's being brought back to you for your consideration. There were a couple questions that were brought up in the public hearing. I wanted to talk to those just really quick and then kind of get into the meat a little bit more because we have a new planning commissioner. Welcome. It's good to have you.
Thanks.
My name's Bill. I'm the community development director. Normally these items would be shepherded through by Shelby, but she's not feeling well. So we hope she gets feeling better soon. The first question was with regard to the idea of a employee versus an operator. And I just wanted to clarify that those are two separate things. So I think that's clear in the code, but I wanted to make sure you guys understood that's what we're looking at there. If you have any questions about that, let me know. Conditional uses, this is a philosophical kind of question with regard to how planning can and should be done. There's a school of thought that says, yeah, let's make everything a conditional use and get it in front of the planning commission for review. That is certainly one way to approach the way that we operate here in the city, but that tends to also have a chilling effect on new and desirable businesses in town. So if we have a robust set of performance standards, which we should, then all of the permitted uses must meet those same conditions, whether or not they are conditional uses or are permitted as of right uses. For example, just because someone lives in a residential area and is permitted as of right to build a home on that property doesn't mean that they can do it without meeting the strictures and requirements of the code. They still have to meet all of the requirements of the code, even though it's permitted. The only difference is who gets to say yay or nay. Furthermore, if a condition is not specifically and explicitly and clearly stated in the code, then it becomes a matter of whether or not we can impose those kinds of extra requirements on a conditional use. Some people think that a conditional use means that we can apply conditions over and above what's already in the code and in the performance standards upon those uses to help mitigate. And that's true to an extent, If there are mitigating circumstances that can be met, then we can look at those, but they need to be addressed in the code first. So a conditional use is a permitted use, provided they meet the conditions as outlined in the code. It's not like we have much discretion over whether or not to allow a conditional use. It is presumed to be allowed if they can meet the conditions. If they cannot meet the conditions, then they have to be denied. The last thing was the question of frontage. We did change that to actually 150 feet. That's in your staff report that you see in front of you. We wanted to find a reasonable balance between allowing these kinds of uses in some areas and not allowing it just generally on every lot. So understanding that the frontage is only a minimum of 70 feet, and many of the lots will be 70 feet wide. Those lots will not be eligible for this kind of conditional use. Just you will not be allowed to have that. There are lots that do exceed the 150-foot frontage, especially corner lots, where it would be desirable to have this kind of thing anyway. So that's kind of the balance that we struck. That's for you guys to determine whether or not you think we did well on that, but that's where we're heading with that. Other than that, this micro enterprise idea is something that staff has come up with in working with some property owners here in town who are desirous to have this kind of business on their home property. It's more than just a traditional home occupation where the impact on the neighborhood is nothing. You would not know that it was there. Maybe there's a sign, or maybe they put something in their window that says you can buy quilts here or something like that. But other than that, you wouldn't know based on the traffic in and out and displays and things like that. You would never know that it was there. This micro enterprise tries to expand on that just a little bit, not getting all the way over into a true retail kind of a situation, but still having it home-based and minimized impact on the existing neighborhood and the residential feel of that neighborhood, but still allowing people to pursue expanded operations and things like that. So we feel like we've kind of struck a good balance here. That's for you to determine, but hopefully that makes sense. And if you have any questions, we're here to help.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Jason, did you have any comments or
I have
thoughts?
some comments, not so much questions. Bill, thank you for doing this. I think one of the intents of this was try to make things more streamlined, so we're not having to make things multi-stepped and we don't have to. I do appreciate Gary's comments. He's trying to look out for all of us. I
Yeah.
think you've addressed those in the sense that this is not wholesale to all development or all commercial in Grantsville. It's for micro businesses specific to a certain zone. And I think you've addressed the concerns that were listed. And even what Gary said, I think even the clarification on what considers an employee versus an owner, I think was good. And I think we've captured that in the verbiage that you have here in the text. So I'm supportive of it.
Awesome. Thank you. John?
Yeah, I have a few questions. First of all, in the conditional use, I thought there was provision, and I admit I'm new, so I went through this package pretty quickly, but the planning commission still is required to approve any use. So what's the intent there? And what could, if we can't impose anything or make restrictions, why would the planning commission approve each use? If it's already, as you've described, it's really in the code and we shouldn't be doing that, I guess.
It's a fair question. The question is one of public participation and getting the opportunity to have this kind of forum where it's in a public meeting and folks can come out and hear what's going on and how we collectively are addressing some of the concerns and performance standards that are applicable to a particular thing. Philosophically speaking, again, just between us, I feel like more items, personally, I feel like more items should be pushed towards permitted, because again, if they're in the code, they're considered to be permitted, assuming you can meet the performance standards as outlined in the code, which is what we do for all permitted uses anyway. So this is an additional step that allows for this public participation, but there's an expectation that if a person from the public were to come in and complain or have concerns about light trespass or fugitive dust or something like that, or that is, or maybe even isn't in the code already, that we would be able to take those into account.
We
And
really
put
couldn't act on it or restrict. So it just seems like that could use some clarification as what would be the role of
Yeah.
the planning commission, because it would basically, if they complied, just say, go for it. And I don't know how we would really have a role there.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
The second thought I had was, so why just this zone? There's a lot of homes there, and the idea seems to be make it so it's not intrusive on the home, so you really wouldn't know what's happening there, but. So why not open it to city slopes or anywhere in the city?
Sure.
And for some reason, we're restricting it to this zone. So why? Is there something that's undesirable about this to these homeowners in this zone? Why are we just limited to this zone? Because if it's good for this zone and the residents shouldn't care, be affected, should be unnoticeable, why wouldn't you operate everywhere in the city?
Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. First off, just speaking geographically, the RM zone tends to be centered more around the city center. And there are older homes with potentially larger buildings, larger homes, larger lots. And therefore it could be more desirable in those places as opposed to places out a little further away from the center of town where a home occupation would be acceptable, but this kind of impact would not be as desirable in those locations. The other thing is that this is the only zone that we're applying it to because this is the only zone that has been asked. So if someone were to come in and say, you know, that's a really good idea, I love what they're doing up there, I'd like to do that on my property, we could look at it at that point as well. This is being brought in connection with some property owners who have a desire and they happen to be in the RM7 zone. So we're doing those two in connection with each other.
So that's part of my point is you're setting a precedence. So if City Slopes wants to do it, how would you say no to them if they came in, if you granted to them?
Well, you can, and that's the beauty of the legislative process is that you can say no to anyone for any number of reasonable things.
You'd have to differentiate though, I think.
You could, and
If you could, then, and that's my question, I guess. And we're differentiating this zone is because you're saying there's larger lots, I understand it's closer to Main Street and so forth, and what I thought was, well, having this zone so many 100 feet from Main Street or something. Because again, I'm sensitive to the residents. They don't want to be, become retail all of a sudden and you're saying, well, you're not even gonna notice it. Well, again, if that's the case, why couldn't it?
So this one you would notice. I think the you wouldn't notice it phrase I used in connection with home occupations, which to me, that's my sweet mother, bless her. She's got a quilting long arm machine and she makes quilts. And she sells them to people online and she ships them places and people come and pick them up from her or drop off fabric or whatever. If you didn't know she was running a little business out of her mother-in-law apartment attached to my brother's house, you would never know. There's no one parking there. There's no visits. There's no, it's not like a regular retail establishment. This kind of threads the space between those two, which is a home occupation, which again, you would not notice the impact on the neighborhood versus a full retail commercial kind of establishment where you would definitely feel that difference. There will be some impact. It will be, the parking is going to need to be addressed. There will be 2 to 4 visitors per hour at these locations.
That was one of the thought with the 2 to 4 visitors. It seems like that will be noticeable, but what happens if it exceeds that? All of a sudden, someone's out there with 10 visitors an hour, what would we?
Well, then that's a happy day for them because they are doing such good business that they've attracted the attention of their neighbors and we've gone out to check. And yeah, they are having quite a few more visitors. So it's time to stop doing business and move to someplace that's more appropriate. And that would be a happy thing, right? So good on you. Your little entrepreneurship work is taken off and let's get you someplace that's more accommodating. And you'd want that anyway. If your business was doing that well, you'd want someplace where you could have people get in and out easier, parking and all of the rest of the stuff that comes with a true retail establishment, not just in your front yard.
Is that
That-
sufficient?
Yeah,
or-
I think so. I would just wanted to talk through those things and,
Yeah.
still just caution, the clarification on what the planning commission's role would be when people come in. Is it really an approval from us? I don't think that it really is, excuse me.
So it is an approval from you, that's true, but we're
It's a stamp.
within a pretty tight fenced yard area of where we can play and
Yeah, it's almost a staff function. You've met the rules or you don't.
Yep.
So we don't really have much of say there, I would suggest, and then just the caution that that we are differentiating why it's okay here and wouldn't be,
wouldn't be other
next
places.
week in city schools.
Yep.
I'm supporting if we, with that call, those.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, John, we discussed this last meeting and I didn't really absorb the fact that you weren't with us last meeting. So as Bill said, we had a discussion on the frontage that we were wanting to look at 200 foot frontage, and we had conversation with that. And we kind of reduced that, and 150 feet frontage is more reasonable in my opinion than 200 feet, but it gives a couple spots for cars to maybe park temporarily, but not impede a driveway or any other access to the house that we would need for safety reasons. So where I think maybe a 70-foot frontage could impede if something happened and EMTs needed to get there, get to the house or someplace on the property relatively fast, that having a couple cars parked there at a 70-foot frontage could cause some problems and access concerns and issues. So
I think that is the main distinction and why we should do that. So would you guess 20% now of the potential lots have that kind of frontage? Would we cut it in half?
Oh, don't get me lying. I don't know. It would generally be, in my experience, it would be the corner lots that would meet that kind of restriction
So
because.
probably around 25% or something.
So yeah, just at
Yes.
a rough number, 25%. And that's assuming that all of them wanted it, which I would guess very few actually do.
and we can always come back and revisit this if we wanted to alter, revisit the guidelines that Bill and Shelby Nicola's developed and proposed. We can revisit it. And I think the limit of 2 to 4 customers per hour is a standard day. If like 4th of July and we've got people walking around our streets all day or all weekend, wasn't necessarily sustained all the time. And so if it was every week by week and we had more than 2 to 4 customers per hour, then somebody might file a complaint. We might have somebody from the public service office go look at it and maybe issue them a nuisance, or we would revisit this 2 to 4 customers per hour. That could impact how they're operating, but I like how Bill's view of saying, good for them. Maybe they'll be able to afford a storefront or put their goods and wares in some place that's a shared storefront, like Built-A-Bear or something, as opposed to just working out of their home. But this was developed because we have a gap in what's allowable currently in our code that didn't really fit what we had some of our homeowners wanting to do or had been doing. We were running into walls in those guidelines. And so Bill and his staff worked really hard to create this. And I wanted to also just point out that the permitted activities is not an exhaustive list. It says right here, examples of activities that may be allowed would include these items. And so it's not that we're trying to restrict or trying to determine what limitations people have for taking advantage of a zoning like this, but it's used as an example of what people may be able to bring and ask for a conditional use permit. And so we can leave those in, we can take them out, we can update them in the future. If we find something that's really a unique nuance that more people want to do more often, we can add it to this list. But I don't think this is restrictive at all. And with it being a conditional use, we would come. And so I think part of what I wanted to do when I started was kind of take a list or have some experience and knowledge about what conditional uses we are allowing, so we can make sure that we're applying that same sort of logic consistently to other people's use. And if one person was denied, then down the road, we can use that as a reference, right? Yeah.
Precedence.
So precedence and try to apply that consistently. And that's kind of the benefit of having people here and people in Bill's position, and Nicole and Shelby are so good about scanning through these first and bringing to us what would really benefit from a conversation and public input. That I think we've done really good on keeping those precedences while still allowing people to use their property as in a wide variety of opportunities and as they see fit. Well, you know, we don't want to restrict people in developing their properties or using their properties. We want to partner with them as much as possible as our guidelines.
Well, it sounds like
Allow.
we struck a balance, and
Yeah.
I think we've answered this gentleman's concerns about the frontage, why the conditional use problematic that would be for every. There was another one, anyway, I think we've covered.
Customer count and
Yeah.
yeah, so I will entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion that we approve the new micro entrepreneurship with RM7 zoning definition.
Second.
Fantastic. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you, Bill. We'll close that item. We'll move on to item 2, which is the consideration of proposed general plan amendment for the parcels that we had mentioned in the public comment portion. Do I need to read them all again?
I don't think so. I think they're in the agenda item
Okay.
itself, and yeah.
Agenda items, parcels ending in 02, parcel ending in 09, parcel ending in 08, and parcel ending in 16, and parcel ending in 14 to change the land use designation from rural residential 2 to mixed use density for the crossing at Willow Creek subdivision, which affects approximately 154 acres.
So if it's all right, I'd like to just kind of do the staff portion of this, covering all 3 of the next 3 items. It's all the same area, the same impact, and the same parcels. And so when we get to the zone change portion, I'll explain how there's different portions that will apply to different properties. But overall, this is the area that lies just to the west of the Motorsports Park and south of the Romney Group property. So if you're familiar with the area along 112, that's where we're talking about. There was a question that was brought up, and I just want to address this really quickly. What you're looking at here is a very, very loose conceptual idea of potential uses, roads, layout of buildings, and things like that. There's a bit of a challenge here when we talk about things like zone changes or future land use map amendments, where we can give you so much information that you get bogged down in the minutia. But then if we don't give you enough information, then you have no idea what we're talking about. So there's a balance there between giving you enough and giving you too much. And one of the things that may be too much on this is the idea of the accesses onto 112 itself. There is a planned light somewhere in this vicinity. That's going to be something that we'll work on with UDOT and with the property owners. They will need a second ingress and egress, and so that has to be depicted there somewhere, somehow. I'm asking you not to get too bogged down into the details of where and distances and all of those things. Look at the buildings, look at the overall uses, look at the overall divisions of the property, and make your decision based off of that, please. Don't get too concerned about, well, there's 6 of these types of buildings, why not 7 or 8? We don't know. The question that we're facing tonight is, when it comes to the land use general plan, the land use map of the general plan, the future land use map, we're really looking at, this is the major portion of what we're doing tonight. When we adopt a general plan, and we're going to look at getting into a revision to our general plan, we've applied for some grant funding to help us with that. When we adopt a general plan, that reflects the will of the people for the next 20 years. They're saying what we want our city to look like for the next 20 years is this. This is our future land use map. These are our goals. These are our desires. These are our objectives. This is where we're headed as a city for the next 20 years. It should be updated every 5 years, roughly, 5 to 10. We're kind of in the middle of that 5 to 10 right now, so it's a good time to relook at this. I was taught early on in my career that there are 3 reasons why you should look at a future land use map amendment like this. First off, and this is the easiest, this is the low hanging fruit, is if there was a mistake that was made. Was it just a clerical error? Was it an oversight? Was it something that we looked at and missed? That would be one of the reasons. Another reason, excuse me, is if there is a shift in the morals and desires of the community at large, such that, you know, this area was once set aside as a wetlands area, and in a horrible drought, all of the wetlands have dried up, and we haven't had snow for 6 years, and now it's actually desirable to do something different with the area. But things have shifted. Things have changed globally. Things have changed within the morals or conditions on the site that warrant re-looking at this before and outside of a regular standard revision to the general plan. And then the third one is the desires of the property owner, which is what we're looking at tonight. If the property owners if the properties change hands, then they could bring something like this to us and say, look, the property has been a field forever. It's time now, based on what's going on to the north, which is the Romney Group and the industrial expansion that we're seeing there, as well as the motorsports park to the east of this property, and the park, what's that park called? The Peak. Thank you. I'm just, it's all in this vicinity, and it's pulling people in off of 112 and out of Tooele and all these places that people want to come and be in this area. Well, that may be a significant change from what it looked like when the general plan was adopted. And these property owners are like, this land is way too valuable and way too important to leave as an agricultural or a rural residential use. Let's change it into something that makes more sense. Let's change it into something that's an asset for the community. Let's change it into something that fits our goals and our desires for the property. And this is what we want. This is what we're looking at. So the question that you guys have, both with this question as well as the zoning question, is this the right time? And is this the right place? Those are the 2 questions that you have to answer. Now, the questions about is there going to be enough water on the property? Are they going to be able to find water to get there? Are they going to have access onto the road? What is the sound going to be like? Those are all real valid questions. You're living next to a racetrack. It's loud, right? When I was down in Texas, we were about 2 miles from a drag strip. And I'm going to tell you, it ruined our Saturday afternoons in our backyard because it was so loud. 2 miles away, we just kind of didn't go out there for a few hours. Those are all valid questions. But on the other hand, if you bought one of these condos or apartments or whatever, and you knew that it was right next to a racetrack, you knew it. You bought it. You came to that knowing this is the situation. We don't need to consider that tonight, okay? The question for you tonight is this the right time? And is this the right place? So that's the future land use question. That's this item number 2. And then 3 and 4 is the rezone question. And a portion of the property is looking to rezone to mixed use, which would involve residential and commercial uses. That's why it's a mixed use. The other one is an MG zone. That's a general manufacturing zone, and it would be complementary to the Romney Group and what they're doing there, obviously on a much, much smaller scale. So that's the desire of the property owners. That's the 3 items that you see in front of you. The one is the future land use map amendment that will change from a rural residential to the mixed use. Yeah, that's right. Then a portion of the property will be for consideration for you to think about in a mixed use area, and then the last bit will be in the MG area. I think I got those reversed. I think it's, but it's whatever they say there in the
Nope,
agenda
I think you're
items.
right.
So that's it. And I'm here for any questions. You saw that there are representatives from the property owners that are here that are excited to talk about this, and they're excited about the project and eager to share ideas and answer questions if you have them. But that's where we're at.
I've got a couple questions of you. So at what point, this is a large rezone for a large piece of ground, would a traffic study be pertinent? Because once you zone this, then they have the right to use it
Correct.
this way. So have we done a traffic study?
So no, and again, that's one of those questions that would come up after the zoning was
You're
in
welcome.
place. There's a reason for that, and it's a good reason. A traffic study is expensive. And it may be a question in our minds whether or not traffic can be addressed on the property. But if we require that at this point, before we've given them any entitlements, the property owners then have a vested investment-backed expectation that we would, if they gave us the traffic study, we would say, yeah, we have to allow it now. Look, they paid $100,000 for this traffic study.
No, I don't think that's true, but.
It's an expectation, and the courts have found that that's the case.
Expectation, and that's where we're headed, I think.
Yeah, and it's just an expectation, but it's still persuasive in court. And so the legal precedent is that, and I'm not an attorney, Tyson, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if people have put too much money, and too much is, for a judge to decide really, but that's why we steer clear of these kinds of things, these kinds of answering these kinds of questions, because first off, if they can't meet the traffic study requirements, and we would require a traffic study moving forward, if they can't meet the strictures and recommendations from the traffic study, they don't get to have what they were proposing, right? If they do, then great, here you go. So it's the same with any performance standard. If you can't do your activity on your property within the bounds that the code says that you have to live within, then you can't do it. If you can't have a blacksmith shop next to a bakery without getting all of their bread smelling like iron and smoke, then you can't have it. It's too much of an impact on your neighbor.
The second question or point I had was, I was on the planning commission in Farmington when we were just starting Station Park. And so a lot of west side growth, a lot of people with horses, so forth. So we had restricted, or was that an encumbrance? I'm not sure if I'm saying exactly right, but it was a notice anyway, an encumbrance on the property, an acknowledgement that if I move here, people raise horses here, and there's going to be manure and flies. And I acknowledge that, or I've seen it with properties I've financed. There's the airport here. There's, so I think we should consider that too, some encumbrance on this site. Whoever develops there would have to acknowledge the raceway there and so forth.
I like that. We had that in Morgan County as well. Every plat that we recorded had a note on there that said, this is an agricultural area, which means dust, noise, all hours, lights, operation, it's going on. So you just get what you get.
Good.
So I like that.
Did you want to ask the developer any questions? Joe?
No, I think the traffic study, I understand what you're saying, and at some point, if that is, of course, a condition of approval of the use, should be. And
Yeah, absolutely.
so we'd protect ourselves there, but it's fine. I'm just curious if it happened already.
Yes,
wanna state
there has
your
been a
name?
traffic study done.
Sorry.
Oh, there has?
Thank you, you've been doing a great job.
Yeah.
We have been working very closely with UDOT. So if you go to slide number 4,
Would you state your name? I'm so sorry.
Kevin Mons, yes. So I am a partial owner. There's several owners back here. There's plenty of owners in the group. I also work for PHI, who's a general contractor, and they are looking at doing infrastructure and different components of the project. But if you look at the slide number 4 here, towards the east, where it says retail down at the bottom, that has been approved for a traffic light through UDOT. The exit or the entrance where it says 112 just to the west, that is a right in, right out entrance. We're working now with UDOT trying to get a second light there. They have approved one light and then a right in and right out. And then we also have egress to the north through the Romney property there.
Great.
So
That's good
that's
to know.
currently what UDOT has approved. We're trying to work to get a second light on 112. Just we know that there are some stipulations with the multifamily, the condo component, the hotel component, some mixed use in there. We are, very aware that there could be potentially, the way it's drawn, traffic going through that residential area. We've done this enough to know that that is an issue, and we're trying to resolve that. Tell me your name again. Bill, as Bill said before, we are very aware that we don't want to disturb the residential component of that as much as possible. So that's why we're trying to work through UDOT. There are other items with that multifamily, whether it's condo, apartments, whatever that is, to mitigate that noise. That was something that we're working closely with Grantsville to do. As far as what the needs are of the community, what is wanted there. So we're being very flexible and moving things around and changing things as things are brought up. We have talked about different construction methods for those east-facing apartments or condos so that it minimizes that noise as much as possible. We do know that there are people who do want to see that racetrack, and that's one of the components that we talked about Grantsville with. Being able to walk out on your balcony and watch the races from that location. So we're trying to accommodate as much as possible and being as flexible as possible, and work through with the community, with water, with the space, with, we've talked about Olympics as well, putting ice rinks there, bringing that tax revenue to the city of Grantsville and making this a place where you can access, Desert Peak. I think that's what it's called, the baseball diamonds, putting a path that leads from this community to that racetrack, to the baseball diamonds, to the events there. So that we have summer activities at Motorsports Park, and we have winter activities, ice rinks and different things that the community can go to during the winter time at this location. So we're trying to be very flexible with what the community and the city wants.
Well, hopefully that's helped the citizen, I think, understand a little better what's going on.
Did you have any more questions, John?
Nope, I'm good, thanks.
Jason?
I have some questions, but I'm gonna save that when we get to the rezone. Right now, we're just talking about amending the general plan, and then I'll save my other questions for when we actually get to that item. But on this, I think what we have here, what we're proposing is symbiotic or works with our general plan now, and I'm supportive of actually making this change to the general plan.
Awesome. Thank you for your description, your work, and trying to help us understand the impacts. I think this is a great time to look at opportunities for developing that area. And I live a little bit further away from the racetrack, but I do love listening to the cars on Saturday afternoon as I'm working out in my yard. So we love it. We love racing and stuff. So I like that you are including that in your thought process. And I know that this is just preliminary, and it's difficult to come up with real plans before these steps are taken. And so we're not going to ask you hard questions about what you're planning to do here, but I'm sure that you're aware that there are environmental engineers that can help build housing structures that dampen the sound, noise, pollution stuff in a considerate way that that wouldn't affect people so much. You're keeping that in mind for housing. That's all I would be concerned about. So let's see. We are entertaining a motion then on this item.
I'll move that we approve agenda item 2 as presented.
Okay. Generally have this.
You want me to read the whole?
Yeah, just for the record, we have people online and.
Drink your water first.
Make a motion to recommend approval for the consideration of the proposed rezone of parcels 01-066-00006, 23-001-000A, and lot 01-112, 00012, and 01-112-00011 from the A10 and R1-12 to the RM15 multiple residential district for the Apple Street Townhome subdivision.
That's the wrong one.
That was last meeting. Well, I read all that and. Nobody can stop you.
Well, I get mixed up on the numbers, so.
I think if we.
I think you get,
where there's no difference. Yeah, you could just say the
That's right.
numbers as
You were on a
presented.
roll, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, because it was the general plan. That's what we're doing. Yeah. I got going here.
Yep.
Okay, so it's my first time.
Well, good job, though.
I move that we approve,
Here's, oh, you thought.
yeah,
Yeah.
agenda item number 2. Yeah, that's right. It's the general plan. Consideration of a proposed general plan amendment. Parcels 01-131-00002 and lot parcel 01-130-009 and parcel 01-130-00008, parcel 01-130-0016, and parcel 01-130-0014 to change the land use and designation from rural residential 2 to mixed use density for the crossing at Willow Creek subdivision, approximately 154 acres. I did it.
Second.
Okay, Jason seconded, and I have to say, I didn't make my first motion until like my 5th meeting, so very impressive. Sorry for my mix up here. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wow, thank you. That was really exciting, you guys. We will close that item and we will move on to item 3 that Bill has already discussed. The consideration of a proposed rezone for parcels in the same area ending in 08, ending in 016, ending in 014 from the zoning of A10 agricultural to the general manufacturing district, resulting in approximately 51.6 acres being zoned MG. And Bill's talked about this. Do the developers want to provide any other information on this item? We are good.
I don't have any more questions.
Discussion, Jason?
I don't have any on this one. I think, again, it matches what we're looking for in the area as far as for future development.
Okay.
Jason has to make this motion.
Oh, we'll entertain a motion for this item.
I'll make a
then.
motion that we rezone the parcels 01-130-008 and also the parcels ending in 016 and 014 from A10 agricultural to general manufacturing district, representing approximately 51.6 acres being zoned as MG.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll close that item and move on to item 4. The consideration of the rezone for the parcels ending in 0. Oh, maybe I need to read these ones. Proposed rezone for parcel 01-131-0-002 and the parcel 01-130-0-00009 and the parcel 01-130-0-00008 and the parcel 01-130-0-00016 and the parcel 01-130-0-00014 from the A10 designation for agricultural to the mixed use district M-U for the crossing at Willow Creek subdivision, resulting an impact on approximately 102.4 acres being zoned MU, mixed use. So, John, we'll start with you.
I don't think I have any other questions.
Okay, Jason had comments on this one.
The one thing on this, I think, and I know the public has made several comments on, considerations of what's going on the road. I think the developers indicated that they've done a traffic study. I think right now, today, we're approving the zone change. We're not approving any other plans with the development. I think when that comes, we'd be looking for things like commercial studies and things like that to support the development you have, so that we don't end up with empty buildings, which won't benefit the city or the community. And so today I recognize that we're just approving that rezone, but we would be looking for a lot more information when it comes to actually approving the actual development that goes in there, and that's just part of that process. And so I'm supportive of this rezone, but for the public's interest, we would be looking for more information later when that other part of that approval process comes through.
Agreed.
Thank you. Appreciate you making that clear. And I also think that it's important to realize that these main roads, Grantsville City has very little input on. They're mainly controlled by UDOT and what policies and procedures that they put in place to determine the facts as based off of traffic studies and things like that. And they use that information for other things like traffic coming into the city and how it's dispersed throughout the city and how many ways to get out of the city. So UDOT has their own set of standards that the city kind of has to abide by and play by. So hopefully, sounds like you have long-lasting relationships with UDOT and have worked closely with them. They sometimes aren't the easiest folks to get along with because they do have very high standards. So thank you for involving them early on in this process. Grantsville did have a study done that had determined and kind of mapped out the next 30 years, including traffic lights and things through our main area. So I think we'll just see that evolve. So we'll entertain a motion then.
Commissioner Moore, could I just interject just for a second?
Absolutely. I'm sorry. I
I'm-
meant to ask.
You don't need to ask me. If I need to give my opinion on something, I certainly will. So an issue that I'm thinking in my mind, and this is really from a city council perspective, you just proposed to change lots 08, 016, and 014 from A10 to MG.
Mhm.
And those lots are now being proposed to change to mixed use. So I almost feel like, and maybe Bill, you could correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, we can't really give a parcel number to designations of a zoning, can we? Now, you can do a lot line adjustments. So I think you were alluding to this a little bit earlier. I think you need to elaborate on this.
Yeah.
Because I understand what the intention is, but when it comes to city council, can we legally give a parcel number to zoning designations?
So the short answer is yes, we can, and we have properties all over town that are covered by two different zoning designation. They're both the PUDs and the overlays, as well as just straight zoning where the zoning goes a couple of 100 feet north or south of the property line on the road. And then north of that or south of that, it changes to something completely different. Usually it's like from a RM7 to an A10 and something like that. And it cuts the properties in half. It's not desirable. It's not preferable planning practice, but in this case, what is anticipated on the property is that the 53-ish acres will be involved with the manufacturing areas, and then the rest of it will become this mixed use area. And so in anticipation of that, the parcels, there is some overlap on the parcels in that the parcel numbers are the same, but the legal description of what is being done will have to be nailed down before the planning or before the city council meeting, because that's what we will legally zone as this particular area, not just portions of these particular lots.
You have it in meets and bounds.
We would have that done before we get to the city council. Yeah.
Thank you for pointing
It's a
that
good-
out.
it's a good
That's
question. It's a very good point.
important. We kind of talked about that earlier today, but I think that their plans will be refined as we move along here.
But I
and
don't
just
doubt
knowing
that.
what
I
they're.
just want to make
yeah.
sure that that it was discussed before you put it
Yes.
for consideration. right?
Thank you.
Yeah, before it goes to the city council, we'll have a meets and bounds description and a legal description of the different properties to be zoned what.
Thanks, Rhett. We definitely would have been called out on that had that not been a part of this meeting,
It
and
would've-
I forgot to bring
would've
it up,
worked itself
so.
out.
Yeah.
We do have the land use designation and then the zoning that kind of overlays it, but I think, did you have any more thoughts or comments, Rhett?
Good, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Okay, I have none.
We'll entertain a motion then.
I'll move that we approve agenda item number 4, consideration of a proposed rezone for parcel 0113100002. Following parcel ending in 00009. The other parcel ending in 0008. Next parcel ending in 0016. And the last parcel ending in 0014. From A10 agricultural to the mixed use district MU for the crossing at Willow Creek subdivision, resulting in approximately 102.4 acres being rezoned MU. The understanding that we'll have further delineation of the site. That will clarify that.
The plans, yeah. Got it. Thank you, John.
Second.
Okay, super. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. We'll close that item and we will move on to item 5, the discussion of Grantsville City Annexation Policy Plan.
So this is a fun one. This is different from a general plan and a future land use map of the general plan. The future land use map of the general plan deals with property that's already within the city limits, and there's a time frame that we look at with that that's somewhere within immediate to about 20 years. And so that's the projected target time frame that we're looking at with these things. With the annexation plan, am I missing something?
Yeah, that has nothing to do with any of this. I mean,
That's really
background.
weird. Yeah, I'm confused about
Well,
the
That is
background there.
really weird.
The devil's in the details, so
I don't
the
know.
staff report is, the executive summary is fine, you can read
Yeah.
it, but the background on it is.
That is not anyway, that's weird. Okay, I'm sorry. Ignore the background. Um,
Yeah, I read that.
That's just really weird and I'm embarrassed. Okay, well, sorry.
Share the background verbally with.
The background is that we need to look at our annexation policy plan from time to time. And it was requested by the leadership of the city that we look into this and propose some changes to it. In particular, expanding some areas and making sure that those are documented as something that we would anticipate would develop into the city and annex into the city. A couple of things to keep in mind. State code requires that we have one if we're going to be annexing property into the city. We have no obligation, unlike a future land use plan where it's already part of the city. We have no obligation to provide services to these places until and at such time they do want to annex into the city. And at that point, we will work with the developer to extend services out there, enhancing capacity as well as providing service lines for things like water, sewer, traffic. All of those things would come into play at that point. And most of that cost, if not all of it, would be borne by the developer. And so the burden on the city is going to be minimal. And the hope is that as things grow, the growth pays for the required expansion of city services, both in infrastructure as well as other services like police, fire, staffing, those kinds of things. So that's what we're looking at. We divided it up into 3 particular areas. Area A is what we're calling the Burmester Inland Port, and at the request of the previous mayor, not the current mayor, I don't want to say anything about her. We extended that basically to the county line And so that includes all of Stansbury Island. And it looks quite dramatic on the map, but that's Area A. Stansbury Island itself, just to speak to that really quick, most of that, probably 2/3 of that is in BLM land and would not be available for development. But there are some areas up there that could be of interest for future development if and when the time was ever right. If that time ever came, the Grantsville City is saying in this proposed plan that we get the first bite of that apple to help provide services out there and annex that into the city. Area B is the 6 Mile Ranch area. It involves that property that is between the area that we just talked about and Erda / Lake Point and some of those areas over that way. It's I don't know how much we want to talk about it on the record. It's a question of legal dispute right now, and we just want to make sure that that's memorialized in this plan. And then Area C as the south and west portion of the city that lies between the Forest Service land to the west in the mountains and areas for development in there. A lot of that area is owned by the soil conservation group, and so it's unlikely that that would ever develop, but there are some properties up in there that could potentially develop out. The cost to develop those areas is going to be quite high, and so the anticipation that that would ever develop is not super high. So, but again, if and when that time ever came that it was ready for development, we want to make sure that they're brought into the Grantsville fold. So that's it, basically.
So not having much experience with annexation, how does it work with the county and with the other cities? The county's kind of says, fine, you know, whatever you want to do, or how's that communication with the city, well, Erda, I guess, and Lake Point and with the county, how does that work?
So typically, most of the time in my career, I've seen annexation just happens very straightforward. They petitioned the city to be annexed in. The city says, yes, come on in, or no, it's not the right time for us. We can't provide services. You're asking for something we just can't do. And it's more likely that things have worked out to the point where the infrastructure can be addressed and will be addressed at moving forward with the things. So the city at that point is like, okay, yeah, come on in. It goes through the county. The county says, yeah, it's okay that you guys annex into the city, and it's a willing buyer, willing seller kind of a situation, and everybody's happy. It's not always the case, as we've seen. So again, I don't know how, I don't think we want to get too far into the weeds with particular areas of town that are in dispute. But when a dispute does happen, the county convenes what's called a boundary commission, and they look into the specifics of who's going to benefit most from this. How can we address concerns regarding infrastructure, traffic access, who's in a better position to provide services, and what is the ultimate interest of the property owners in this. That all comes into the equation. The boundary commission makes a recommendation, and then we kind of move forward from there.
So this I was getting at as a dispute, the scene that was there is usually between the private property owners, or is it between the county?
It would be between the different municipalities that have claim on. Now, typically, it's a question of control. How do we, as a city, exercise that control? And other places I've been, they have looked at a particular city's capacity to service the property, not just water and sewer and other infrastructure, but what is the regulatory environment like? What would this mean for us property owners going forward if we were in city A, which has much more restrictive, versus city B, which has much less restrictive, or city A, which has a regulatory environment that is mature, that has the capacity to deal with interesting and creative solutions to things, has staffing, has whatever, versus city B, which has none of that and is just saying, we don't want anything anywhere. So, those are some of the considerations that property owners have had in cities that I've been in the past where there has been some dispute, not just here.
Seems like they're everywhere.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Have any other questions? Jason?
Is this, and I'm not familiar with this, I guess, before, we haven't had this policy plan before, and so this is a new plan, or just new altogether, is that correct?
No, so we have had an annexation policy plan before. I tried to find a copy so that you guys could have it, but I couldn't find one. I have seen it referenced though, and so I know that it exists. I just wasn't able to find a copy. But it looks basically like this, just a little, this one just expands it a little bit, like this pulls in Stansbury and.
So is the main impetus behind what we're doing here is just basically putting stakes in the ground and saying, here's the areas that we want to
Correct.
have first state dibs at this. I will make one comment, and I know, having dealt with personally and with other large landowners, there are some people, other cities have been trying to put their stake in the ground as well. And I think we need to make sure we're sensitive to some of those larger landowners, because they will push back and they'll not want to be included in a plan just because it sets expectations, and not that they aren't open to that discussion in the future, but there are, I know, like I said, two, I know specifically that are not keen to be on anybody's plan right now until they set kind of their own charter. And so just to remove that expectation, to make sure we're not capturing groups that might be sensitive to that. And I can talk to you more offline, because I'm not going to mention names here, but we need to watch what that looks like, because you will get some pushback on that.
Well, I want to be clear that the city has no immediate plan to go after any of these lands, so.
That's stated, but I know that there are sensitivities there, and I'll have to actually step away from part of this because of my role at work, and so I need to make sure we're careful with that, but sure, that is something that's been addressed multiple times with multiple cities here in Will County.
Yeah, it's,
I'm just saying that.
No, I
it's
get
something we
you.
have to work through,
I get
so.
you. And again, just to reiterate, we're not actively looking for any of these properties currently to come into the city at all. If the property owners wanted to come in, we're just saying we would be open to the idea.
Understood. I just map set expectations, and people look at things and say, this is what I remember, and why isn't it matching?
Well, and they always
That's
think
all
it's gonna be tomorrow and we're gonna go out and get them, and no.
So-
Okay, yeah, that's a
Just
fair
clarifying
point.
that. Okay.
Yep.
That's all my comments.
Thank you.
So this is a discussion only item.
Right.
We're not looking for action. We'll notice it for a public hearing for our next meeting and get it pushed through that way.
At some point, was there a difference between map A and map B or map 1 and map 2?
Yeah,
that
if
we
you
were
look,
supposed to
if you
be-
look at if you go to page 20 there, where your cursor is, you see that just includes lake area.
Yeah.
And then map B just kind of restricts that to actual land area.
That's potentially land,
Yeah,
which a lot of it, especially near water, would take an environmental study, and you wouldn't
Right.
want to probably.
well, and that's
do
owned by
anything
the
with it anyway,
state.
But
It's owned by the state, and a lot of even the yellow area is owned by Sitla. And even some of the northern areas along out by Flux and that area, that's gonna be Sitla's as well. So the likelihood of that developing is not zero, but it's pretty close to zero. There's wetland areas in there, and it's problematic for development, but again.
yeah,
Yep,
thank you for bringing this fresh view to our knowledge and understanding, and if there's a potential for that, I think we'd consider it.
you bet. And Jason and really all of you, if you have questions or thoughts or anything, shoot me an email or come by and we can talk about them, and we can be sensitive and adjust if need be. To all of
So
that.
is the plan to publish this on like city website, or what's how is it gonna be communicated?
So what we would do, I think, this is my thought, is we would get a recommendation from you, lock in any of these kind of little details that we need to make sure are clarified and just, make sure that that's been adjusted to. And then we'll reach out to the Tooele County folks and make sure that they're invited to a public hearing at the city council with the more revised and refined draft of this to go in front of them. So apologize again for the staff report. That was really weird and unlike me, so I apologize for that.
That is great. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. Okay, so we'll close that item and look forward to that coming in front of us in the future. We will move on to item 6, which is the approval for the commission to, for the commission minutes from the January 20th, 2026 Planning Commission regular meeting. Wow, I'm getting ahead of myself here.
I'll make a motion to approve those, the January 2026 meetings. I reviewed them and found no concerns.
I guess I should abstain since I wasn't here.
We've-
Or can
That's
I?
not necessary. As long as you have no reason to,
No, I have no reason to doubt.
to question them or see any error with it, that would be sufficient to,
Okay.
to
No,
vote
I'll
for.
second the motion.
Super. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Yeah, we've had that come up before. And Tyson, we depend on Tyson to give us clarification and direction on that one. So we'll close that item, move on to item 7, the report from city staff. Which would,
So, there was an error. The agenda shows January 6th for the minutes instead of January 20th. Tyson, do we need to notice that for next time then?
That would make sense because that gives the, well, what the agenda and notice needs to do is give, the public reasonable expectation as to what's going to be on, for discussion, at this meeting. And, what this indicates is that it is for the January 6th date, not the January 20th.
So then I'll just redo it for the next month.
the agenda does. Okay.
I was more concerned about what it said and the day that it was written on there, so
Well,
my
I-
bad for missing it.
I rarely look at the actual agenda. I'm always using the notes that you put together, so I apologize for missing that too. Thank you, Nicole, for pointing that out. So we will revisit that next meeting. Is there any other discussion from staff? Hi, Bill.
Just one last thing. With all the new planning commissioners and changes and shifts in our planning commission, we're looking to put together a meeting. We have one more planning commissioner or 2 more planning commissioners that may be online soon. So we're hoping to get that taken care of. And then soon after that, we'd like to have an off week meeting. That sounds weird. A meeting that's not a normal agenda that we'll notice and get word out, but just have a workshop about planning commission roles and expectations and just do a little bit of a training that way. Nothing formal like this, but just something where we can kind of chat a little bit more about what our expectations would be and how to be the best planning commissioner you possibly can be.
So we're always just recommending to the city council, right?
Not always. On conditional uses and other things like that, you are
Actually,
the,
the vote.
yeah. And those are the kinds of things, exactly the kinds of things that we would go over. So, yeah.
That'd
That
be great.
sounds great.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so we'll talk more about that once we get our additional planning commissioners on board, and then we'll set up a time where we can all get together and chat.
Okay. And last meeting you mentioned that there's a APA meeting coming up
Yes,
also.
that is that not first weekend. I think it's the 8th through the 10th of April.
Oh, April. Oh,
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long ways off.
Yeah, it feels like forever, but it will be here before we know it. So that's in Bryce Canyon. So if you have availability, let us know, and it should be a good one.
Bill, what was the date of that again?
I want to say it's the 8th through the 10th. It's,
Of April?
yeah, I think the
Okay.
first weekend is Easter, and then, so they didn't do it that one, but
I
it's,
just wanted to communicate that to others that might be joining them, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
perfect. Okay, that's it for me. Nicole, you have anything? Okay.
Okay. And my calendar is usually wide open on Tuesdays, so I can do an off week meeting if need be, so. Be up to John and Jason, and then of course. Our new pending members, we have one that'll be going before the council tomorrow, I think, so. Tomorrow,
Two,
yes.
yeah.
Oh, both of them are coming? I only saw the one on the agenda, but maybe I was looking at old ones.
Last minute that I could.
Oh, no, that's great.
So,
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm so excited. Okay, we will close that then, if we have nothing else from the city staff, and move on to item 8, the open forum for planning commissioners. If there's anything that you'd like to discuss in the
Just
public
thanks for your
meeting?
patience.
Well,
New at it,
welcome.
so
Yeah,
it's good to
welcome.
be,
Nothing
thanks.
for me.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
We're happy that you're here.
Yeah, one thing, as I talked to the mayor, and as I served in Farmington, we had more trails in Farmington city than anywhere but Moab in the state of Utah. So
Really?
we were proud of our trails in the mountains, and it was on the BLM land, but part city, and then bridging that actually, and then out to the bay. Some wonderful trails out on the bay there, with a lot of birds and so forth. And so it would be nice to be thinking of that. In Farmington, there was, with every proposal, there was a trails person that would, for our information, indicate how this would accommodate or not trail, trying to develop trail system and so forth. So I think that's something that could be improved upon here. It would be interesting to see that. So just throwing that out there for thought is that would be something that would be nice to kind of incorporate in. We gotta get someone to do it. Maybe it's me, I don't know. But we had a trails committee, and now it's been changed in Farmington to I'm not sure exactly how they're handling it, but it was a big deal. And I've financed a lot of resort properties in my past, and in golf courses and ski resorts, but the number one thing today, it seems, is access to the outdoors, and that's more important than being on the ninth hole or whatever of the golf course. So I think it's just something to think about, and a lot of work to do probably in this city. I saw some people riding horses. I saw them up by scenic slopes, and I saw them downtown on the sidewalk with their horses, and it's, well, how do they get from point A to B, and how could we better accommodate bikes, people, horses, even motor vehicles and stuff?
That is amazing. I love to listen about your experience and knowledge. Do you want to expand on that, or?
Well, just that we, the problem we had really was the trails not being used enough. So we had a committee of about 12 or 15 volunteers that would maintain the trails. And it was a lot of, it's education, really. And letting people know, I see down where you turn to go to Twilla, there's a parking lot with the county, and then there's one over by the irrigation building up by where I live. It's like a parking lot to nowhere. I don't know, at the moment. I don't understand what the positioning of those were for, and there must have been some vision to it from the county, I believe. And then, of course, there's the reservoir there. But it would just be great to see us try to link those kinds of things up, and really make that a big part of the city. I think it's a good thing.
Corolla County has a trails committee that actually is meeting and working through some of this. There's not a lot of funding for it, but they are working through that, and they have focused more on the east side of the valley versus the west side.
Yeah.
Which doesn't help us, but I know that they're looking at trying to expand that out, but it's a good point.
If we took the initiative, maybe they'd provide more support. So something to think about, and I'm just trying to figure it out myself. I think on Quirk Street, we've had a paved trail. I followed that the other day, and it goes for a ways. It's kind of the trail to nowhere there a little bit too. So
We're well aware.
yeah, so get the trail to somewhere connected. That was a big deal, is the connection. Will this sever the connection, this development that you're proposing? If you at least do this easement on the east border line for 15 feet, will maintain the connection. And that was the heightened concern and about that as we approved anything or recommended anything.
And I like where you're going with that, and I'm not sure how long you've been here in Grantsville.
Just about almost a year.
Almost a year.
So
We do have, with many of our developments, an open space hope or dream or expectation that we try to kind of stick to, that would enable some outdoor activities, or at least some exposure that could include trails and stuff. And so that's been a kind of a focus. And then Heidi, as our city council member and now as our mayor's, brought a lot of opportunities for looking for grants to the city that would support that sort of thing. And So she's been really good about keeping kind of a finger on that pulse for opportunities pre-funding. That would increase our community recreational opportunities a little bit.
I know Bountiful City's doing a ton now, and the connectivity is the key, and then trailheads where people can actually, park and access is a big deal.
Yeah.
So.
It's great. We'll keep it on the simmer pot. I
Good.
appreciate that. Thank you. I look forward to learning more about your experiences. So you said you had worked in Farmington and then on a governmental review board anywhere else, or just with your personal development?
Just personal development. My background, just real quickly, is I work for a nonprofit group that we finance affordable housing by deploying. Banks have a responsibility to get monies into the community under the Community Reinvestment Act. And so my nonprofit, we have about $800 million on behalf of the banks that we fund long-term financing, usually new construction of affordable housing.
So you work with the Olene Walker Group?
Yes, so
over
Olene
there.
Walker is
So
usually.
I think I've recognized you. from
Okay,
maybe some of those
yes,
meetings.
so they're a second mortgage holder on almost every loan that we do. We do the long-term financing. But probably 1 out of every 15 new unit you see anywhere in this country, in the state of Utah, is restricted in some way for affordability. So we're just way behind.
We like
So,
that
and
too.
Grantsville doesn't have much.
We don't. It's hard to
So,
bring it in.
yeah.
We've had lots of discussions and conversations about affordable housing
Yeah.
and
So
how
the,
we can fit that here. but-
right, the closest a good example is we just refinanced was the Remington out as you're going into Tooele. Those are two Section 42 projects. They're done with tax credits and they make,
Oh, they're light tech.
yeah, like tech
Super.
properties. And so that's something that we could try and attract developers to Grantsville to do some of that with you.
Well, bring them on in, John.
We tell them it's open for business here.
How about that? That's awesome. Okay. Do we have anything else?
No.
Okay, super. We'll close that item and we'll ask for a report from our city council liaison, Brett.
Okay, so part of my thunder was stolen with the new planning commissioners. We will take care of that next week, or no, sorry, tomorrow. We'll take care of the ratifications for the 2 seats that are empty right there. So we'll have you a full commission here shortly. The vacated seat for Mayor Hammond's seat for the city council was filled by Brittany Skinner. So Councilwoman Skinner will take that seat and she'll join us tomorrow. So it'll be great. Other
Awesome.
than that, there's nothing really to report from our last meeting that really pertained to this body. So anyways, that's all I have.
Super. Thank you, Brett. Okay, we'll close that item. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, super. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you.